This episode's brought to you by our great sponsors of the Pacific Northwest Fungo Banner podcast, starting with Max BP, the small ball pitching machine to improve your hand-eye coordination and reaction times while providing an unmatched amount of reps. Max BP has 5 different velocities for fastballs, as well as right-hand and left-hand curveballs. They also have the Pro Machine with additional velocities, right-hand, left-hand curves, sliders, and cutters, as well as a rapid-fire setting for defensive drills. Go check them out at maxbp.com. Also, Safeguard out of the Tri-Cities. Go check them out, as they have provided all of the great gear for the Fungo Banner since day one. Go check out Safeguard. And Top Tier Sports, if you're looking for some summer tournaments still, go check them out all over the Pacific Northwest. I even hear they might even have some basketball tournaments here in Ellensburg. Go check out devobats.com for all your wood bat needs out of the Tri-Cities. And if you need your coaches fungos, they are the company to go see. And new to the podcast, AstroTurf. AstroTurf's Diamond League Series is now the official synthetic turf of Major League Baseball, trusted to perform at all most elite level of the sport and loved by everyone. Go check them out if you're looking to renovate your facility.
Being a Northwest guy is you're raising a batting cage, you're raising an indoor facility, you're taking ground balls off of, you know how to work in limited space.
Okay, I'm going to tell you right now, and I know I'm biased because I'm a Northwest guy, but I will take a Northwest guy over somebody from another area any day of the week. I just think they're tougher. I just think they're tougher guys.
I think that's one of the best things about baseball is it still is a way that you can really develop toughness and develop, loyalty and all those kinds of things that we want out of young men in particular.
Welcome to the Pacific Northwest Fungo Banter podcast, where we highlight all of the great coaches of the Pacific Northwest. Now, here are your hosts, Eric Sorensen, Jason Jarrett, and Kelly Gow.
Well, welcome back, Pacific Northwest Fungo Banner fans, to another episode of the podcast. I'm joined here with Jason and Kelly, and we are beyond excited for today's guest we have on. A lot of conversations with him at the clinics in the last couple of years, but we got a Hall of Famer on the call tonight. We got Terry Agnew joining us on the podcast. Coach, thank you so much for taking time to come on with us tonight.
Well, thank you for inviting me.
We are so excited. And right away, our very first hard-hitting question is, what is your favorite fungo?
Well, I honestly, I don't think I have a favorite fungo as long as it's not aluminum. Anyone that uses aluminum fungo should be banned from the game. So I used SSK. I had a lot of Louisvilles and some Mizunos, but I think my last one was a SSK. It was green, so I finally got, moved forward a little bit and got something other than wood tone.
That's awesome. That's a great answer. Coach, we always want to know about our guests, their path through baseball, through growing up playing baseball, and then after your playing days were over with, what got you into coaching and carried you through your long career?
Well, I was, I played baseball, like all of us from the time I was, 7 or 8 years old. And I was very fortunate. My high school coaches, Bob Levitin was the head coach, and he's a Hall of Fame guy. And the assistant coach at that time, he came in my sophomore year. He came to Newport High School, was Bob Albo, who's probably, if not the best high school baseball coach that's ever been in the state of Washington. He certainly is in the top 3 or 4. And so I was very fortunate to have great coaching. I like all of us at that point, I thought I was going to be a professional player. And unfortunately, that didn't turn out the way that I had planned. So I played 2 years at Bellevue Community College for Coach Harriman, who, again, another wonderful coach. Then went to the University of Washington, played 2 years there. And then when I wasn't able to sign after that, I went back and spent time coaching with Coach Levitin, who at that time was at Interlake. And then I also spent time coaching in the summer with Bob Albo, his American Legion team. Then I got hired at Central Kitsap High School, and I spent 12 years over there as the head baseball coach, and then came back to Woodinville High School in 2000 and was there until I retired from coaching baseball. And I think it was 2017 when I retired. So about a good run, and it was good fun. I had great experiences as a player and as a coach.
Coach, you had a long run as a coach there, and different avenues that you went to. What were some of those things that helped you kind of grow in your coaching from each school that you went to? Was it the people that you're working through? Was it the maybe literature or classes that you were taking? But what were the things that helped tool you to become a better coach?
Well, probably the best thing that I ever did is when I coached summer baseball with Coach Albo, and we would after every game we'd go and have dinner somewhere, and we'd spend hours talking about baseball. And I like I always say, is I think I got a PhD in baseball that summer, just sitting and meeting with him after games and coaching with him. He gave me a lot of responsibility and let me pretty much run the team, and he just kind of sat in the dugout and relaxed. But then when I went to Central Kitsap, it was a kind of, not to be critical, but the facilities there weren't real good when we got there, and spent a lot of time. I was very fortunate. I hired my assistant coach was a teacher in the building, and he was the auto shop teacher, and he could do pretty much anything. And so we didn't have much of a budget, so we would go down to the junkyard and we'd haul back a bunch of pipe, and he built L screens for us. He built a portable backstop for us so we could roll around where we wanted. We didn't have any batting tees, so he got tire rims and welded a pipe on that and put a radiator hose on top of that. And I mean, those things, you can go over there now, and if you dig around out in the weeds, you'll still find them. They last forever. But he was able to build for us everything that we needed that we couldn't afford. So I was lucky that way, and was able to learn how to build some things, because I wasn't very good with my hands as far as doing things like that. But I learned how to do some things from that standpoint. And then when Jim retired, my assistant coach that I hired had been a pitcher at the University of Washington, Dan Zuber, and he did a great job coaching our pitchers over there. So I learned a lot about pitching from him. And then when I came back to Woodinville, it was kind of like the complete opposite. Anything I wanted we were able to pretty much come up with, and it's a little bit different situation. So I went from rags to riches in some regards, and the players that we had and the families that were supportive of us at Woodinville were pretty amazing.
Yeah, it's probably time I hop in here and just put my allegiance on the field as a proud Woodinville alum and former player, Mr. Agnew here. Yeah, it was an experience. I think a lot of what we miss in baseball now is the community, the feel around a big game. In Legion's not really there anymore. Summer ball's changed in that aspect, and what we have now is high school baseball, right? And I think a lot of those things kind of have remained the same, and you have a chance to play for something and be in your own community and play the crosstown rival, and being able to play under the lights, the hillside, a crowd, all those things was always a fun atmosphere there. But good times in the Woodinville days. I wasn't the team to reach the pinnacle, and we got to the playoffs, but we burned out pretty quick there in 2007. Got surprised.
That was a good team too. We just didn't play very well when we needed to.
Yeah, ran into that stadium buzz. I'll never forget. No knock to the stadium, because it's actually my backyard now where I currently live, but I remember them doing cartwheels and somersaults in the outfield, running around, and then they hang I don't know, was it 18 or 20 runs on us in a couple quick innings. For a team that I think we only lost 3 games that year or something like that, with some sophomore pitchers leading the way. But talk about the different teams, the not specific teams. We can get in the championship team at some point in time, but talk about the players. You mentioned amazing families, and some big name families that they've coming through there, and were successful and all that. But maybe talk about some specific stories and families and groups and people that you were able to engage with and bring along in your time there.
Yeah, well, and again, when I was at Central Kitsap, we like you said, Legions kind of disappeared, and there was a good Legion program in Bremerton, and they kind of that's where South Kitsap and Central Kitsap and East and West Bremerton kind of played in that, and I was able to keep all the young kids that I wanted at Central Kitsap, and basically, we use that to build upon the next spring. And when I got to Woodinville, there were a lot more options for summer baseball, and again, I'm still a big believer, and even though it's an old-fashioned view and outdated in a lot of ways, but I really think I like American Legion baseball because you've got boundaries as far as where you can go. You can't go out and recruit all-star teams that go out and play. You got your guys, and that's what I always tried to sell the Woodinville guys on. And when I got to Woodinville, one of the dads wanted me to start a Legion program because he was from Coeur d'Alene, and they had a big Legion program over there. And I was just I was kind of tired after football and baseball. I wanted to maybe take a summer off, and I said, well, okay, if you can find a sponsor for me, because I don't want to go out and ring doorbells. I mean, when I was at CK, literally Dan and I don't know if you've ever been to Silverdale, but there's not a whole lot there where the high school is. We would start at one end of town and we would go to the businesses and knock on the door and say, hey, we're the baseball coaches at the high school. Will you be willing to donate any money? And, we back then, if we got a sponsor, we put their name on one of the jerseys. It's kind of way back to how that worked. And I mean, it was time consuming, and it was hard. But the people were supported, but they just didn't, they'd never had a team like that in the town. So when we got to Woodinville, I told his Don Morell was the gentleman's name. I said, look, if you can come up with a sponsor for me, then we can sit down and talk specifics. And he goes, well, how much money are you talking about? And I was used to spending time. There were times at CK we didn't play any home games because I couldn't afford umpires. We went on the road all the time, and I'd put everybody in the back of my pickup truck and we'd drive. And so that was what our budget was back then. And so I said, okay, if you can come up with $25,000 so we can, that should cover everything we need to do. And I figured I wouldn't hear from him again. And like 10 minutes later, he called back. Okay, I got the sponsor. Now what? Oh, crap. And so that's just it kind of went that way. And that was those kids that played on that team. They were the sophomores that came in the year I went to Woodinville, and that's kind of where we were called the Woodinville Baseball Club at that point. We hadn't been incorporated or anything, but that's what the banner was that we played under. And it just allowed us to do things and to play against people in other areas and be able to travel around and have a good old time. So those were good times, and we continued to do that. And Kelly, as you know, it's hard over there. You can't really, back when you were coming through, it was hard to keep all your guys, everybody wanted to come in, and they take your shortstop and your best pitcher and your center fielder and your catcher, and now you're left with guys. And I always told the assistant coaches, if we can't play a schedule and put together a team that's going to allow these guys to grow and get better and experience this, then we're not going to do it. It's not fair to them when they could go be playing on the other teams, the Taylors and the Dows and, Chafies and all those other teams that were around. So, but we were able to do it for quite a while. And then it kind of toward the end, it petered out a little bit, but we had Woodinville team for a number of years. So that was a way for us to grow. And we had great families. I mean, I had great players. I was very fortunate. The athletes that I had in both football and baseball. I mean, we had the Tuyasa Sopos. They brought three boys through and two girls through that were great athletes too. And the Lenses, they had three boys that came through, and Chris Billmeyer and Brian Kurtzen. And I mean, we had some really, really good players that came through there, and we were able to have some success, and hopefully the players all had a good time playing there. So it was fun.
Well, I think the things I enjoyed about Legion baseball was that you got the summer aspect of everything, right? Showing up and playing games and getting better and practicing, but you were always playing for something, because at the end of the summer, it correlated to an event, right?
Yeah, you had to win to move on. You didn't get to say, okay, we got $1,500. We want to go to this tournament in Georgia or this tournament in California. You had to win your way into it, and I liked that too. I thought that was good. There were many summers when I had the boat hooked to the back of my truck, and it was all packed with the camping gear, driving to the district tournament. And if we won, I'd come back the next night. And as soon as we lost, the Agnews were off to Eastern Washington to go on vacation. So
that's awesome.
That's cool. Coach, what was your driving force to continue to press forward? I mean, you're just like you were saying, go through football season, and I know all the prep that leads up to that, spring season, and then taking in, another couple more months, of coaching summer ball. There's a lot of guys out there. You don't see a lot of coaches that have that grit, I say, that have that fight to continue to press forward and say, well, I'm either burnt out or tired. I need a break. But what was your driving force?
Well, I as much as I liked high school sports, I really, really enjoyed summer baseball, because you got to be, you could be a different person, so to speak, and a little more relaxed with everybody. And we made our guys play two different positions. They had their main position that they played, but then we always made them do something else, just so that they could get some experience doing that. And maybe somewhere along the line that would pay off for us at the high school. And again, that this summer we always told the kids, this is spring training for the high school. I mean, you're playing, you're learning. And that was one of the things we tried to sell them on staying and playing in the Woodinville club is that you can be having a miserable summer, but we're going to stick with you because we need you to be a good player at the high school. And if you're having the same kind of miserable summer on some of these select teams, you're going to get buried so deep you're not going to get any innings. And you need to play in the summer. That's the bottom line. You got to play. And so that was really important to me. And I don't know. I like the competition of, I mean, I got, bored. I don't have a whole lot of habits or hobbies, and I don't, even then I had fewer, and my wife was awesome. She was always with the kids and made my life easier that way. And I just like to compete. I like to see kids get better and watch them have that same kind of desire to be the best they can be that I always tried to have.
Yeah, I like how you're saying, Coach, that, you can kind of be a little bit more relaxed. I know for me, with the WIA, they frown upon the old mouth, to officials. And so there's not much we can say when there's a bad call, but when it comes summer ball, we can say a little bit more.
Yeah, you can let that guy know that screwed you during the school season exactly what you think of him.
Exactly, for sure.
Yeah, I mean, it's just, I remember until we were playing in a tournament over in the Tri-Cities and again, it was all Woodinville guys, and we're over there playing, and we were in the semifinal game, and it was one of those kind of throwaway games that we were going to move on to the finals anyway, but we had to play this last pod game, and I didn't want to pitch anybody, and so we're out there, and you still want to win, even though it doesn't mean anything. So I go out there, and it was the sixth inning or something, and our pitcher was kind of struggling, didn't have anything left, and I said, okay, we need to make pitching change here. And then, all the infielders, I'll pitch. So I said, okay, look, let's do rock, scissors, paper out here and see who's going to pitch. So we're out there on the mound. They're all going like this. And okay, you're up. And I run back in there and I heard some kid in their dugout and go, did I just see them do rock, scissors, paper to see who got the pitch? It was awesome.
Oh man. No, I remember just briefly there we played in a tournament up in Leavenworth, Cascade area, probably 10 years ago. We were playing Nine Pine and I got a little testy with the official, the base ump, and he was just blowing it all weekend. So I had enough, and he throws me out. And of course I get their fans going. And so I did the whole like walk to each base, giving high five to every player and position player on my way out of the park. And it was just, you just kind of just be yourself every once in a while. The summer baseball for sure.
Oh yeah. That's when I was at CK, we had to go up to Port Angeles and they were always really good. And the big joke was, like in football, you were down 14-0 as soon as you crossed the bridge to get over on the peninsula. And baseball, you're down 3-0 before the game even starts. And we got hosed up there all the time. And it was really nice to have the summertime when we'd go back up there and you could just tell them exactly what you thought of them.
And umpires love when you go into the closet and grab those skeletons out and bring everything back.
Oh, yeah.
Their favorite.
Yeah.
I think every ejection I had was a previous call that I'd love to bring out. And by the way, this one too. As we've kind of revolved away from summer ball, the Legion and whatnot, like have you gotten to, I know you're removed from it a little bit now, but obviously your son's still in it and those things, and you want the game to be better in our area, but do you see a path forward to maybe getting back to some of that, play for your community stuff? And obviously
I don't know if there will be, because parents are so different now. I mean, they want what's best for their kid, and there's a lot of money, especially on the east side. That there, if parents didn't like you, they'd just go start another team, and they'd come and take your kids, and it was like that. And I don't know if that's ever going to change, at least in our area. I mean, even areas that were real hotbed for American Legion, like on the east side, in the Yakima area and the Tri-Cities and Spokane, even they struggle now with the select teams that come in and grab their guys. And again, that's not necessarily, it's not necessarily a bad thing, but it's just something that I never really, I didn't want, like I always tell people, I don't want to waste my summer coaching somebody else's kids. I don't have any desire to do that. I'll spend my whole summer coaching my guys, but I really don't want to. I don't want to do somebody else's job for them and make them better. So, I don't think there are a lot of the select coaches, the summer coaches have kind of become a lot more prevalent in school baseball teams. It's different than it used to be. The school guys were teachers in the building and they coached, and some of them were really good and some of them were just doing it because they like baseball and whatnot. And now you don't find that so much. I mean, you get a lot of the select guys are wanting to coach summer baseball as well. So I don't know if it'll ever come back to that or not. I doubt it. I mean, I think it's maybe in some areas, but I don't know, not in the state of Washington really.
And your good buddy Rob Reese is the one kind of holding the fort now. And
absolutely
baseball. Yeah.
Yeah. And Rob, I mean, every year he tells me he's going to retire and he keeps coming back. I think he's just waiting long enough to get his son to be old enough to take over the program. So, but yeah, Rob's a great guy and a great coach. He's really good for kids. I think a lot of Rob.
Yeah, Coach, I think too, part of it is when you start bringing money into it, things change a lot. Like you said, me at that point, you pull kids from other programs and, maybe they get the sweetest swag or the biggest trips. And, I get it. Everybody, it's community, right? You want to kind of associate with the people you like to hang out with. And, you see, but yeah, when you start getting money involved, with certain things. And that's kind of my worry, is that with the game, with that sense, with the high school, as long as you're going to have continuation of that, it's just going to be a hard stop. Because you think about some stuff coaches on the select side, they do. I get it. I don't take anything wrong from a guy who wants to make money over the summer, especially if he's a teacher or something else, so kudos to them if they can make the time to do it. But that's, it's going to be the driving force that's going to keep those things going. So.
Yeah. You talk of, the teams with the most uniforms and this and that, and the fans. Shoot, I remember when we were coaching the Woodinville Baseball Club when we first started. I said, okay, we got to have a second uniform, and we were trying to figure out how the hell we were going to afford that. And I said, okay, let's do this. We'll wear blue socks one day, and we'll wear green socks the next. And that was our alternate uniform the first year. So yeah, it was. And then then we never bought the real fancy uniforms. We'd buy T-shirts and print them up, and we could buy 3 different color T-shirts and print them up for what some of those people are spending for one uniform top. And so it was fun. Had a good time with that.
One thing you talked about there, and it's something that's like it's prevalent to me because I'm not in the building, and it's something that when other young kids talk to me like, hey coach, what do you think about getting into coaching? What are advice? Now, one of my first advice to kids is get into education, become a teacher.
Yeah. Because
I feel like there's more and more, and I'm guilty of it because I'm a farmer for my day job, but like not being in the building on a daily isn't, it's not beneficial in a way.
It's hard. Because you gotta, I had some kids that I coached that weren't the greatest citizens in the world, but they did what I asked them to do. I can't tell you how many times teachers would come to me and say, so-and-so is causing problems in my class. Can you talk to him for me? And I wanted to just say, well, he doesn't cause problems for me. Why don't you work a little bit harder to, get him to work for you? But I always had to bite my tongue. I couldn't quite go that far. But, guys, if you're just, all you got to do is, be there and give them a little bit of help. We had a couple of football players at Woodinville that were not particularly the most liked kids in school by most of the staff. And I loved those guys. They were freaking awesome. And they did everything I ever asked them to do and more. And again, had we not been in the building to be there for that, then who knows what would have happened to them. So I agree 100%. The more coaches you can get in your building, the better off you are. And it's harder and harder now because there's, in the olden days, they didn't hire you as a teacher unless you were going to coach or be the band director or, drama, or you had to do something other than just teach. And now they don't do that. They hire teachers and then you have to apply for the coaching job later, at least in a lot of districts. Not everybody does it that way, but yeah, the more people you have in your building, the better off you're always going to be.
Well, I know even over here on the east side, a lot of the schools like to hire coaches that are not in the building, because of the, them being away from the classroom and trying to find substitute teachers and things like that. And with the districts where they are and losing money right now, they're not really wanting to pay extra money to put some other, individual into basically manage a class, so
right.
Kind of interesting how that has evolved too, is that they more lean towards, maybe someone of a different occupation for a lot of coaches. So we see Kamaikan and Kennewick and Southridge, a lot of our 3A, 4A schools, these guys, maybe an accountant or, work in a business or own a business and those kind of things. So it's definitely changed a lot for sure.
Yeah. And I look at it, that's really a short-sighted view. And I get, in the bottom line is money's driving all that because they don't want to pay for substitute teachers. They don't want people out of class, all that. But it's really short-sighted to think that, if you're going to offer something, excuse me, you should fund it properly and you should make it the best that it can be. And if you're trying to nickel and dime your way through and, that's not what's best for the kids.
No, for sure.
I think the best benefit too of having, coaches that are in-house is that week one tryouts, it makes it really easy to be there at 6 a.m. in the morning and be able to put your players to the grinder.
Yeah.
Season off strong, huh?
I know. I even went up there one day and watched Dillman, and he just doesn't do it hard enough. I gotta tell him he's got to put a little more into that. There weren't enough guys throwing up in the garbage cans.
Oh, let's dive into that, because we've heard that story from Kelly, from Kevin. Talk about what behind doing that.
Well, I always wanted to do that, like the basketball. There's a lot of coaches that do that midnight thing. They turn their first practices.
Oh yeah.
I asked my principal, actually, when I was at Central Kitsap, I asked Mr. Jensen hey, can we have a midnight practice? And he goes, where are you going to do that? And I said, well, we'll use the football fields because we've got lights there. He goes, if I turn those lights on at 12 o'clock at night, I'm going to have every person within 5 miles calling me asking what's going on. So I figured, okay, we can't do that. So I figured the next best thing was we could do it before school, bright and early. And again, it was twofold. Back then, when I was at Central Kitsap, I actually had to teach kids how to play baseball the first 2 weeks of the season. We had some really good players, but we had some kids that really, they didn't know much about what they were doing. They just wanted to play, and they certainly weren't in very good shape. I mean, they didn't spend a lot of time. There wasn't a lot of off-season things for them to do over there. And so we used that. My excuse was we want to do this because we want to do our conditioning in the morning, so then we go onto the field, we're able to coach baseball and concentrate on baseball. Well, as the time went on and things got better, and especially when we got to Woodinville, it was like, okay, a lot of these guys are, there were years where, well, Kelly, like your senior year, we could have played a game the first day of practice. I mean, our guys we had a lot of guys back, and they were all in good shape. So then I had to kind of change that and say, okay, we're not doing this because of conditioning, but we're going to work on base running in the mornings and kind of disguise base running to be a conditioning type thing, because you still want to run the crap out of it and punish those kids who weren't in shape. Excuse me. So we would do that, and again, a lot of it was working on jumps and just acceleration and that type of thing. And we also got to the point where we would do competition type drills, running drills, where we would compete, and we made, instead of having the winners get to sit down, we always made the winners stay. If you won, you were still in. It was the guys that didn't win, we cleave those guys off as quickly as we could. And I mean, you get a handful of guys that they were not going to lose to anybody. I mean, they ran and ran and ran, and that was really good. You found out, it was kind of like going to football camp. You found out real early who's going to compete and do the things for you, who liked contact, and then you could go back and you could start your coaching. And the best conditioning one, Kelly, I don't know if you remember this one or not, but we would put 4 garbage cans around the corners of the basketball court, and we would usually break it up, sophomore or seniors, juniors, and sophomores. And so we have the sophomores, they'd run, and you'd start together, and somebody would have to go run and catch the guy, and when they caught the guy, then the race was over. So we would have like the juniors and the seniors going in 2 piles, and they'd be running around, and every once in a while you get really good ones where they'd have to do like 7 or 8 times around the gym. And that's where we would get the guys that would get sick and stuff, because it was real. Again, if especially the poor sophomores, those guys, if they lost, they had to stay in that drill. They had to stay in. The poor sophomores, man, they were running from the beginning of it until the end, and they're yelling at each other and fighting amongst themselves. And pretty soon they figured out that, okay, we need to get the fast guy up there in the front so he can catch that fat guy in the junior class, and so they'd figure that stuff out on their own. So it was a good time for us, for the coaches, maybe not for them.
Yeah, I don't remember specifics. I think we're just trying to get to 7 a.m. in the showers at that point in time. especially in the younger days, because JV tryouts or JV practice was hitting in the cages and then running some foul poles just to top off the day.
Yeah.
We'll talk about some of the seasons, like, what, kind of reflecting back. I'm sure you have a chance to reflect, but what are some years that stand out or some moments that stand out for you and in the time there as you kind of tied a bow on your career?
Yeah. Well, and again, when I first got there, we had a class, a group of kids that came in as sophomores, and those guys, there were kids on that team because we had a lot of football. That was the best thing, is when I had a baseball team that was made up of a bunch of football guys, and that was a lot of fun. And that first group that they came in '90, I think they were there. That was their first year, because that was my first year up there, and we had kids that played 3 years of high school sports and never had anybody but me as their coach, because they played football for me, they played spring baseball for me, and they played summer baseball for me. They didn't, unless they played basketball, or wrestled, they didn't have another coach. So that particular group, I mean, I still see a lot of those guys that were in that class. So that was really a fun group, and we were really good. And we had a bad Kinco final and lost a game that we never should have lost. One of those things where you lose to a team that you'd already beaten twice during the regular season, and they had one really good pitcher, and he pitched really well in that game, and I think we lost 2-1 in that game. So that was an awesome group. I really liked those guys a lot. And then we had, some time. We got a little bit further along, and then that class that Marcus Tuiasosopo, his class came through, and that was another awesome class. And we had Marcus and Brian Kurtzen and Pat Conniff, he didn't play baseball. He played freshman year and he hurt his shoulder, and his sophomore year in football, and had to have labrum surgery, and they tightened it so much so it wouldn't come out again. He couldn't throw. So he just stuck with football, and he went on to play at the U, and he was a great player. But that particular group was another one that was just so much fun to coach, and they competed really hard. And that team, Kelly, that you were on, was another team that was really good. And Kevin had a group that team, his senior year, we won the state tournament, and that team was, that was a real mix of sophomores, juniors, and seniors that played on that. And then we had another group. I don't know, Shay Donlin, does that name ring a bell?
Mm-hmm.
Shay's class was another group. They came through when Shay's group was 14. They won the Junior Legion state tournament, and the parents were all trying to decide what they were going to do, because I wasn't coaching summer baseball. Alan and I took some time off at that point, and they came back and they wanted to know if we would come back and coach these guys. And they finally convinced us to do it. And we coached those guys in the summers, for most of them, for 3 summers. Some of the better ones, like Shay, we encouraged him to go play at a higher level, because it was important for him to get better. And but we won two Junior Legion state tournaments with that group, and we never had a lot of success in the Kinco tournament with them, but we were always in it, and figured out a way to play really poorly at the wrong time. But that was a really good group, and that I was gonna retire after those guys left. And we had a guy in that team that was kind of an odd guy, that I was, one of those guys that you always seemed to be butting heads with him, because he had a better way to do it. And when I was talking about not coming back, and Dillman told the players I probably wasn't going to come back, he came to me and he says, Coach, he says, you really need to stay and coach. He said, if you hadn't been the coach here, I'd have quit baseball a long time ago. He says, but you didn't take my crap and you didn't allow me to do the things that I thought were the things I should be doing. He says, and you need to come back because the players need you. Because I was at the point at that because I started out coaching and I was like their big brother, age wise. I mean, got my head job at CK when I was 21. So I was really close in age to those guys. And then I went from being their big brother to their dad to, at the end, it was like their grandpa. And it was like, there's kind of a big gap here. I mean, I may not have anything that's valuable to these guys to teach them anymore. And when he came back and said, no, you need to come back and coach, I went back and coached for another 2 years after that. And then the district told me I had to, if I was going to continue to be the AD, I had to quit coaching. And since I spent my entire AD career fighting for coaches in building, it didn't make any sense to me to, retire and leave so that I could coach. And it would make much more sense to stay as the athletic director and get out of coaching. So that's how I ended up.
Yeah, that you see that change a lot too, right? I mean, you don't see a whole lot of ADs as coaches anymore, and again, it's politics plays into it, but it's kind of
and it's really it's a, in my opinion, it's really to use the excuse you don't want your athletic director to be coaching because he'll favor his teams. You can't do that. I mean, if I tried to give the baseball program a $10,000 budget and I'm only going to give softball a $4,000 budget, that wouldn't go over very well. And if I gave the boys basketball more money than the girls, that wouldn't. You can't do that anymore. Kids are the ASB kids are involved with the budget, and it's just you can't do that. There's too much oversight. So that's a bad excuse.
Well, and they're all so well connected, right? I mean, you're for the betterment of all kids, not
exactly
just one group of kids,
Yeah, so. I mean, I'm a firm believer, always have been, that kids need to play multiple sports. And there's one coach that's at Woodinville that we had run-ins, and I just said, look, I mean, the next time I hear someone tell me that you told them not to play basketball or baseball or to wrestle or whatever, if I hear that again, you're gone. I'll replace you. I said, this is your first and last warning. And your job should be to coach your guys during your season and then to get them involved with other sports and compete in other sports. We didn't have enough athletes at Woodinville to have guys be single sport athletes. They needed to play multiple sports if they were interested in doing that.
I was going to wait. We got a good listener question for the end for you. We got two good ones for the end. But we just had another one come across. And
these aren't guys that know me, are they? That are going.
One of them is. One of them
later.
Yeah.
Our previous guest of us, and it's something that it hit me. Gosh, dang it! It hit me this lot maybe 2 years ago when the kids were having a conversation, and I had no idea what they were talking about. And I was like, I'm not that old yet. How am I out of the loop on this? And CJ, I wonder what the transition is like to go from relatable to the guys when you're younger to more of a mentor parent type figure to athletes.
Yeah. I mean, it and I look back and I wasn't ready to quit coaching. I wish I would have coached baseball for another 5 years, but as it was working as at the time, the way I didn't feel so bad about getting out because I was going to go and be Kevin's assistant coach because he was coaching in the area then. Mm-hmm. And so it wasn't going to be that big a deal. I'd be able to get my fix in that way. But, I don't know, because you look at some of these college coaches and even some of the professional coaches. I mean, like Pete Carroll, I mean, God, he's a lot older than I am, And then you look at Mike McDonald, who's like, he could be my son. And you just go, where is this point where you're not relevant anymore, which is kind of how I felt. But I think it has to do, I don't think it's an age thing as much as it is being able to communicate with your guys. And the biggest compliment I ever got was from a guy that when I was at CK, he student taught for me. And he we went back over with our football team when we had Marcus in that crew. We were really good, and we went over to play Bobby's team at Olympic High School in a jamboree early in the year and just absolutely smoked them. I mean, it was embarrassing that we beat them so badly. And over there where Bobby was, that's kind of a different. It's more blue collar. A lot of guys work on the naval base and a lot of military. And he comes up to me after the game, and Woodinville always had the reputation of being the rich area where all the rich guys live. And he goes, "How do you get those rich white guys to play so damn hard?" And that's just what we expected of them. And it wasn't, we didn't pull reins back on them. We made them play hard all the time. And I think it's more the message. It's not so much your age or who you are as a coach. I think it's whether you still have the energy to do it, and whether your message is they buy into it. And if they don't buy into it, it's obvious time to move on.
And that's, you said it earlier too. I can't remember exactly what we were talking about, but just, creating the relationship with the guys.
Mm-hmm.
And that's just the most common theme that we've heard. And we're season 5 or 6 now of all the successful guys. Right. And it's just, I hope people are listening or picking up on that, because it's so true. And I think that's how, we go back to the conversation about being out of the building. That's my biggest try, is if I might not be there every single day, but I'm trying to find a way. It's part of the reason I always go to their basketball games and their football games.
Exactly. You can go up there and have lunch with them once a week, be there during lunchtime. But yeah, and again, Kelly will be, he can attest to this. It's not like I was their best friend and everybody thought I was the nicest guy in the world, but I think everybody understood where I was coming from and what I expected of them, and they did it. So,
well, and I think that allows for guys to be able to be like, to hold people accountable and to have the comment like that kid said to you, because if you're just a screamer and yeller and don't care about them, they're just going to tell you to fly a kite.
Yeah, I agree with that.
Yeah, you want to develop that sense of respect, right? I mean, that's the other issue too. Some coaches are more into the buddy system. They want those guys to be their buddy. It's like, especially when you're a young coach, I get it, it's difficult, but at the end of the day, you're not there for looking for friends. You're teaching these men how to live lives. You're a teacher, and that's the thing is I think coaches miscue that, and they can kind of twist coaching into a wrongful occupation, but really there's a truly a big blessing in coaching. And that's the thing, is being relevant. I think no matter if you're 21 to 80 years old, if you, like you're saying, Coach, is that if you have good content, I mean, kids are going to be all in. You're going to have every single eye and ear straight on you.
Yeah, no, I agree 100%. I mean, that's one of the issues I have with coaches today, and there's nothing wrong with being positive, but from my point of view, there's nothing wrong with getting after a kid when they're not doing what you want them to do. I mean, if you think it's hard playing baseball or you think it's hard playing football, wait till you have 2 kids, 3 kids, and you got a job and you can't stand your boss because he's on you all the. I mean, this is easy compared to what you're going into, and if you can't deal with this, then maybe it's time to reevaluate you as a person and not keep blaming those people that are out there.
It's one thing we've seen die a little bit. I mean, I just remember, like, yes, there was a fear factor in the coach of Woodinville High School when I played there.
Thank you. I succeeded.
But it was a level of discipline too, right? Oh, we got a cat appearance.
Hey, he's back.
Banks.
It's weekly appearance in Kelly's cat. There you go.
Whether it was cleats, whether it was shaving, whether it was like there was rules, there was expectations, there was things that were there. I remember, I'm not going to name names. I remember you sent a kid home and told him to go shave before he came back to practice. I think there was was there a jock strap or a cup story too of walking down to play against sports?
Yeah. That was Zach. Zach Toohey. I got all kinds of Zach Toohey stories, but this was a good one because and again, you can't do this anymore because it's physical abuse if you do it. But I used to line everybody up and we'd do cup checks, and I go along with a fungal bat, and you do that now, you're going to get sued. But back then, you could still get around that. And Zach never wore a cup, never. And he says, "I'm in the outfield, coach. I don't need one." I said, "Yeah, but you pitch too." And so it was like the third time, and he didn't do it, and he kind of jumps out of the way and he's laughing and making a big deal. And I said, "Okay, Zach, you've got 35 minutes to run downtown to play it against sports and buy a cup and get back to practice. And if you're not back here with the cup, you're not playing." And he sprinted out, climbed over the fence in center field, and was gone. So.
Oh man. Oh
yeah,
man.
it's just the expectations, right? And I think it made us think higher of ourselves too as players.
Yeah.
When if you go through these rules and these discipline, like you get into a game situation and things aren't as hard, right? I mean, you practice harder, you do things that are game like and all those things. And the little things, being a part of a program, and we talked about it a lot tonight about whether that's Legion or high school, or the that level of respect for that, like having pride within your program and pride with falling in line with everyone else and doing the same things as everyone else. That's 6 a.m. workouts. It's, wearing the same blue shoes, all those things. Once it gets to game time, like you're going to compete together. There was never much individualism there. And I think if there was, it was weeded out pretty quick in my memory.
Well, and we put a lot of, I put a lot of pressure on them to, you need to, this year's team needs to live up to what all the teams before you have done. And, they felt very strongly. I mean, if they didn't win a Kinko championship sometime during their 3 years at Woodinville, I mean, they felt really bad. Like they'd let all those teams down beforehand, because we talked about that. Just, it's not just you. It's the tradition that goes on here. And, we let our upperclassmen, they were like assistant coaches, and they worked with the younger players to try to get them to make sure they were doing the right things. But again, it's just that whole atmosphere and that whole attitude about, everybody joins together to the greater good. So
I think you kind of just answered it, but with your football your football program as well, and baseball, what do you think was the most successful traits from your teams that were the most successful? Maybe they weren't championship teams, but the most successful teams that you had. What were some of the traits that those particular seasons had?
I would like to think that it was that when teams got done playing us, they knew that they'd been in a battle. I mean, our guys in football, they played really hard. And in baseball, they did the same thing. We played hard. We weren't going to hopefully make mistakes that would cost us. And, it was, we give up ourselves when we needed to for the betterment of the team, and just playing hard. And I remember JT D'Amico, when he was up at Eastlake High School, they always had good teams. They didn't win a lot of Kinko titles, but they were always in the playoffs. They were always creating problems from people. And when he left Eastlake, and he's now in the softball world, and we had our issues because he was kind of a mouthy guy and stuff, and had to threaten his life one game. But that's another story. But yeah, I told him, JT, every year we tell our kids, to win a Kinko championship, it's going to go through Eastlake High School one way or somewhere along the line. It's going to go through there. And he goes, "Well, it's funny that you said that, because we never really won any Kinko things." He says, but I always told our kids the same thing. If we want to go anywhere, we got to beat Woodinville. And, there were a lot of other good teams in our league, but it was that kind of thing. We wanted people to know that they'd been in a battle when they played us.
Should we bring on that other listener question? The Coach, the feed's blowing up on behind the scenes of people asking questions.
Record. It's a record. We're gonna
Yeah,
record.
actually, it really is. It's awesome. This is actually, thank you, listeners, for asking questions. And this is a good question that I want to bring on. I believe you've coached against him, but Derek Bingham. What's one way your style of philosophy changed from year one until the end of your coaching career? Bonus question: other than the obvious answer of Kelly Gow, who was your favorite player to coach?
I was not the favorite. I was far from.
I think Kelly planted that question through.
Actually, Kelly Gow's sister was one of my favorite athletes at Woodinville.
Did
Did
She's
Derek
the
Bingham
favorite in the
really
family too. Like just add it to her rap sheet. Yeah.
So did Derek Bingham really ask that question?
He really did. Yeah.
Can you repeat it? I lost track.
What's the
When
one
you
way
started
your
saying it
style?
was Derek, I lost track what I was thinking.
What's one way that your style of philosophy changed from year one until the end of your coaching career?
Well, I'm not sure. Well, I think I calmed down a little bit when I first started coaching. I was a little bit more of a yeller and a screamer than I probably should have been. And I honestly kind of got one of the things I learned from Coach Albo is that when you go to coach, you need to be who you are, not a coach that you played for somewhere down the line. And I always perceived Coach Albo as being he was kind of not a yeller, but I mean he was a lot more vocal than I was, and I tried to be a little more like him, and that really, what I was doing when I first started was counterproductive in a lot of ways. I mean, I went overboard. And so I think I didn't ever lose my desire to be the best that we could be and to play hard and to hold kids accountable. But I made sure that I always went out there and I was who Terry Agnew was, and not who Bob Albo was or who Bob Levinton or Jim Harriman. I mean, I took a lot from them, but I needed to be myself. And I think that's probably the best advice I could ever give a young coach, is to be yourself and not try to be somebody else.
That's awesome. He just chimed in with another one. If there's time for another question, I'm curious how you felt coaching other sports. Football made you a better baseball coach.
In all honesty, I think coaching football made me not as good a baseball coach as I should have been. And the reason for that is I had so many assistants that I had delegated a lot of things to do, that I kind of got away from being a real hands-on, involved with I coached the quarterbacks and the running backs, and you have a handful of those guys. I mean, there were linemen that came through our program that I really probably never had much of a meaningful conversation, just one-on-one, because I never dealt with them. They were with another guy. And I think that it took me a while to realize that. And I kind of lost my way a little bit as far as being a hands-on baseball coach during the early parts of my football career. And I think I kind of rallied and got away from that. But I think that hindered me a little bit. But again, you got to be involved with your guys. You can have great assistant coaches, and my football coaches and my baseball coaches were great coaches and my best friends. And but that doesn't mean that I shouldn't have gone and talked to the quick guard once in a while to make sure that life was good with him, and talk to somebody else that I didn't coach every day to make sure life was good with him. So that's probably how I would answer that question.
That's awesome. Oh gosh, we're rolling on this one. And we also want to get into some stories here in a second too, but I'm sure you got plenty more stories to tell us. But one of your players, Carpenter. Coach, it's Carp. You are a star. It's great seeing you. Not sure how that fungo I took Okay. I'm not sure how that fungo I took out from under your weight with the hook slide in practice wasn't your favorite.
Yeah. I can't believe, Carp, you could actually do a hook slide.
Big boy.
So, yeah, I don't know. Fungos are fungos. I used to tell the kids that they, they'd always give us, Dillman and I, or my other coaches. Steve Johnson was another one of my coaches who's been a real, if you're a basketball fan, he coaches up at Jackson High School now, and his basketball teams are always at the state tournament. He runs real deep with them every year, and he coached with me for a number of years, and we'd always give those guys a hard time. They say, well, we can hit fungos better than you, because you give fungos to the pitchers who go out there and hit to the infield, and it's like a waste of time. And the joke was that we could hit a net at 90 feet from home plate with our fungo. So that's the way we tried to stay away from them.
Oh, good times. Plenty of good stories. My favorite story, I think, hosting the Kinko tournament. I'm not going to name players. I don't know if it's embarrassing or not. We're hosting the Kinko tournament. I think Inglemore and Bothell are playing or something like that. And pitchers warming up in the bullpen, and we got the bigger bullpen, right? The visitor bullpen wasn't really used that often. Everyone usually go behind the first base dugout to the bigger bullpen. One of our players who had looked a little older had come to that game that we weren't playing in, dressed up, looking very professionally. And he stood, and I don't know if you ever heard this, he stood behind the pitcher, that fencing there between the cages and the bullpen, and pretended to be a scout. He had a stopwatch, he had a notepad, he had everything there, and was telling this pitcher warming up for a playoff game, different critiques, and hey, throw that one again. I want to see that one again. Show me that pitch. I still never remember how funny that one was, but the things you can get away with.
Who was that? That's
you,
good.
You want to take a guess? My era.
I don't know.
There's brothers in my era. One was
One
a
of the
pitcher,
Lenses?
one was a two-way. It was a D. Roy.
That's what I was going to say, D. Roy, but it was one of the D. Roys.
Garrett, yeah.
That's good effort.
Got in their heads,
Yeah.
whatever it takes.
Yeah, I remember we were in the. Remember, did we use the indoor batting cages in the back gym when you were there?
Maybe a little bit, not much.
Okay.
The worst rain days, I think I remember going up there. Yeah.
Yeah, we were in there hitting before a game one time because the JV, I don't know why, but we were up there, and Coach Dillman's brother-in-law was up there talking to Alan, and he and I were in the back, and we had the players were out in the front gym, and they were stretching and warming up out there, and then they would come into the back in groups of two to hit in the cages. And for some reason, someone said, "Hey, there's a scout back there watching the hitters," and every group that came back there came through the door, looked over at him, and sprinted to the cages. I mean, everyone. It was just like, and Alan and I started laughing. It's just like, wow, these guys. What's the deal? You think they don't do that all the time? And he goes, I think they think Muggs is a scout or something. And every one of them did that. So I thought that was pretty funny.
That's funny.
I remember, Ducart's year. There was a lot of people around with him.
Yeah.
Still remember him.
Well, see, and that's those guys. They, the summer guys always talk about, oh, you're not going to get recruited by the big time coaches. None of the big programs are going to come and watch you. Well, Curtis was a Woodinville Baseball Club guy. He played with us all along, and he didn't do an early sign. I can't remember why, but he decided not to do it. And we had a day at practice where the head coach from the University of Virginia and the recruiting coordinator from Georgia Tech, both of those schools had been in the final. They'd gone to the College World Series the year before. They were sitting at our field watching Curtis, because he was the only real guy in the state of Washington that hadn't signed anywhere yet. And they came to our practice. So I use that all the time, telling kids and parents, hey, it's not where you play. You know, if you can play, they're going to come and watch you because that's what they get paid to do, to find good players. So if you can play, they will find you.
We got another special question coming in, and it's going to be a video question on this one. And you're pretty familiar with the guy. He's muted, no camera.
Can't see very well, but oh, there he is.
There's Kevin Agnew.
No.
Was I supposed to bring a question? I'm sorry.
Yeah. Remember when I told you about
Bringing
those guys
answers.
who used to get in trouble at school and I had to go talk to them because their teachers couldn't control them? There's one right there.
Yeah. My sophomore year, Coach Johnson was my English teacher. And, you know, kids get notes sent to go see the principal and stuff like that. My dad had stolen a pad of notes and would just send them straight to Coach Johnson. And the TA would come in, hand him the note, and Coach Jay would always just turn and look at me and start laughing and go, "What did you do now?" And I'd have to go down to the locker room, and yeah, that happened more than once.
I do believe Kevin did have a story that had to be told. What was the story about a fungo and some cars?
Oh God! Don't they could probably still come back and get me for that.
Yeah, I had heard through the grapevine that a bunch of kids from Inglemore or something were driving down the outfield road at Woodinville, and you hit a ball that got their car 450 feet away.
It was a little shorter than that. I was out behind second base. So it was probably more like 250, but yeah, that was pretty good. That was a good shot. Got a
short park four,
ovation.
yeah.
Oh, and then
but there was another one that was even worse than that, though. I should have never done that. I would have had to fire myself if I were the AD then. But the hot air balloons used to come through the valley, and they'd go over the baseball field all the time, and and there was this one balloon, and it was really low. It was only about as high as the lights, and it was going over the field. And there was a lady and two guys in it. And the lady goes, "Oh, hit us a ball." And the guys go, "Coach, go ahead, hit him a fly ball. Hit him a fly." And I said, no, hit him a fly ball. And they finally talked me into it, and I hit it. And as soon as I hit it, Dillman goes, "Oh shit!" And it went below the balloon, but above the basket, right over their heads. And I'm just going, God, this is going to deflate the balloon, and they're going to crash, and I'm going to go to jail. But it missed them. Thank God.
I wasn't there for that one.
Again, one of those things that you can't do that kind of stuff anymore.
Well, and everyone talks about like the fear factor of Coach Agnew and everything like that. There was some of that with us, but a lot of the guys in my class like grew up around him and had gone camping with him. And like, you know, he used to cut our hair when we were younger. He'd shave our heads. And like one year Casey Prizeman came in to get his head buzzed, and the clippers were so bad that it was literally just pulling the hair out of his head. And Casey wouldn't say a word. He just kept his mouth shut. And finally my mom was like, "Oh my God, stop doing that." Like Carp hook slides Coach, and he's leaned up against his fungo and goes all the way down to the ground. And the best part is like Carp feels about as big as the, you know, bug next to him. And all of us are just holding our laughter, just about ready to die laughing to see how he's going to react. And Matt Tuiasosopo one time missed a cutoff guy and drilled Coach right in the back.
Oh,
And all of us are laughing, and Matt's just like about ready to jump over the fence and run away like Zach did that one time. I remember one time we played Garfield, and Garfield wasn't very good back then. And I think we beat him like 9-1 or something like that. We should have 10-runned him. And Bobby Carlson was standing in front of me while we were getting the post-game speech, and he had a mosquito on his hat, and I smacked it. And Bobby turned around and goes, "Did you get it?" and we ended up running for the next 45 minutes. We ran more than we played baseball that night. Oh man. And then I'll leave one last one, and he'll remember this one. Our state trip, the year we went to state, my senior year, we had a coach on staff named Coach Hall, and Coach Hall was awesome. Everybody loved him. We called him Captain Ron.
Captain Ron.
And he had this great big, like, old school car, and he had his huge. I remember the trunk of it was enormous because he'd always bring up these like random pitching machines, and one of them was so big we used to call it the barbecue, and it shot the balls like it was a 3-wheeled one, and I mean we got hit by that machine more than anything. And Captain Ron would always be out in his car like fumbling around stuff because he came up from Burien, and we were playing catch on the foul line, and Captain Ron's over there just fumbling around. His pants are like so far down his crack, and we're all just dying. And you know, we talked about like discipline, and we're supposed to warm up a certain way and all that, and we always did. But Richie Lentz, we're all of us. It was kind of catching our eye, and finally, Richie Lentz, and I think at that point, Coach Dillman and my dad had caught on, and Richie goes, "Hey, Casey, Captain Ron's smiling at you," and the entire team turned around, and there's Captain Ron in the car with his butt hanging. It looked like he was fixing the plumbing. Oh my gosh! And we were just all dying. And that was like, you know, those were the times where my dad would kind of. That's where he connected with us, right? Like I think that was one of the things I respected the most about him was he knew when to push and when to kind of get in with the guys, and you know, he was funny too. Like playing for him. He was funny. Like he was funny and made us laugh, and he would get after us for sure. But we had a lot of good moments as well. I don't have a question. I'm sorry.
Oh, that's awesome, Kevin. Thank you for jumping on tonight.
Yeah, thanks for having me. Thanks for the invite.
Did you ask Maggie about my wig I was wearing when we called him today?
Yeah, see, there's the grandpa part of it. He called the girl today in a wig from the elf costume or whatever. They're all, "What are you doing, Baba?" Players from the 90s probably wouldn't believe that for sure.
Oh, that's awesome.
Yeah. Yeah.
Well, see. We got one more listener question before we wrap this thing up, unless you got any more stories after this one, Coach.
Oh,
But
most of the good stories I can't tell. That's the problem. But
there's an off-air portion of this episode. Yeah,
there's a reason why you go to the clinic in Ellensburg.
Yeah,
when we're sitting at the tab after those stories. That's right. Let's see. We got Josh Cox, guy from the local town here. How did you find success building up some of the less seasoned players without dumbing down practice for the rest of them?
Well, I think the best way to do that is like I mentioned a little bit earlier. We used our returning players as kind of almost like assistant coaches. And if we had someone that was struggling with something, I mean, like, you know, our younger shortstop, I say, "Kelly, that guy's having trouble turning in double plays. Can you make sure you're paying attention to what he's doing and give him some advice and use the older guys to help with the position groups because they had a much better understanding of what we were trying to get done." And I think that's I don't think you necessarily have to dumb it down. And again, I'm kind of a bad guy to ask on that because I know a lot of coaches now, they have all their guys practice together, the varsity and the JV, everybody's together, and they kind of, and I wanted to separate and get the varsity guys as much time as I could on the field, and then the JV guys and the C team would come in at a different time. But some of our practice, especially early on, the first 2 weeks, we would have everybody together, and then we would split up. But I think using your players to elevate them instead of trying to dumb things down to their level, I don't think that's the right thing to do. I think you need to try to elevate the lower ones to the level of the higher ones instead of bringing the higher ones down to the lower ones. I think that's a bad approach.
I love that. Well, as we wrap this thing up, do you have any parting comments you have for any of our listeners?
Just, thank you for those coaches that spend the time with the kids. And coaches, whether you're a young coach or an old coach, I mean, go to clinics and listen to other coaches talk, because, we may think that we know a lot about what we're doing, but to be honest with you, if you pass on an opportunity to go listen to what somebody else has to say, you're cheating yourself, but you're more cheating your players. And I reference Coach Albo a lot, but I mean, he told me a long time ago, he says, you may go to a clinic and you may only learn one new thing at that clinic and that you spend 8 hours at. He says, but you're a better coach because you learned that one thing that you didn't know, or you found a better way to do something that you already do. So you need to go to clinics, like the high school coaches clinic. I think that clinic, I like those types of clinics better than the kind that you go to that have professional people talking and, a lot of the big time college coaches, because they can give you some information as far as teaching skills and things, but they're in a whole different world than we're in. And we don't get an opportunity to coach our guys as much or as long as they do. We're not around them as much as they are. And so to listen to other high school coaches that are fighting the same fight, that we are. I mean, I want to go listen to a guy talk about rainy day practices. What do you do? I mean, there were many years where I had muddy, crappy fields I had to go out on, and I didn't want to not go outside. I had a hard time just going in the gym and, doing first and thirds and bunt defenses, just to keep them busy and count a practice. And plus, there was Dan Gable. You guys ever heard of Dan Gable? He's like the greatest American wrestler that's ever lived. And he used to have a bunch of clocks on the wall when he was in college. In his dorm room, all these clocks with different times from around the world, and he knew what so-and-so from Russia or so-and-so from Ukraine or from wherever, he knew what time it was there. And he'd wake up in the middle of the night and he'd look up and he'd say, oh God, it's 3:00 over in Tokyo. I got to get my ass up and work. And he'd get up and do sit-ups and push-ups and do stuff and then go back to bed. But he didn't want someone else to get something on him that he didn't already have. So I thought that was a great story about, being focused and trying to be the best that you can be. So, learning from people and coaches are the biggest, we steal things from other coaches all the time. Nobody has any original thoughts really in this game. It's all stuff that's recycled and coming back. And again, if you can find some things that work for you and allow you to be a better teacher of the game and help your players, you need to go and find that information. And the best way to do that is to go to clinics. And, whether you're learning something during the clinic itself or you go to the after dinner functions or after clinic functions and talk in a smaller group and get information there. But I thought that's critical. A coach should go to at least one clinic a year to try to get better.
I absolutely love that. Well, Coach, make sure you stick around when I end the live stream for the after hours conversation with us. But thank you so much for taking a couple time tonight to come on with us. This was a really enjoyable episode to be a part of.
Well, good. Thank you very much. It's been a lot of fun. Like I say, I was really excited. I didn't feel so bad about getting out of coaching because I knew I could go be Kevin's assistant. And then he goes and moves to the furthest point in the state of Washington. So
it didn't take long to get to that. You have an open invitation.
Yeah.
God's country for a reason over here in Eastern Washington.
Yeah.
Every state needs an armpit.
Stop it. Anyways, well, Coach, thank you so much for coming on. And
thanks for having me. It was fun.